And actually, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because I know me.
And you don't have to understand my boundaries to respect them.
Well, no, I'm the president and co-founder of McShin, a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorder.
Oh, goodness. Like, okay. I gotta work on that.
Yeah.
Like,
Celebrating my 6 months. Didn't have cake.
Yeah.
gosh, you showed up. Hey, you guys. My name is Monique, and welcome to the McShin Foundation's Get in the Herd award-winning podcast. It is Women Wednesdays, so we got the wild, wild women of McShin here. We are having our guests and our interns, Angie, Ellen, and Latika here. So everyone give them a round of applause. Yes, so we're going to just be discussing kind of what got them into coming and interning at McShin, and what their experiences and takeaways have been so far. So I'm going to start on the left, to the left, to the left. Latika.
Well, Latika. Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I am here because I am an intern. I am a student at John Tyler Community College, which is now known as Bright Point Community College. And I am a student in human services with a certificate in substance abuse counseling. And I'll be graduating in December of 2022.
Woo-hoo.
So that's what brought me here. What has kept me here, we'll talk about it through the rest of the show.
Okay, awesome. And Miss Ellen.
My name is Ellen. I got here through to get my 500 hours for PRS, peer recovery specialist.
Ellen, you need to get into that mic. There you go.
I had someone really close to me that passed away from a heroin overdose, and I deal with mental health issues and addiction myself, and that's why I'm here. And that's about it.
And last but not least, Angie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Angie. I'm a person in recovery. I've been in recovery for about 3 years, 7 months, actually. I counted it up recently. And, you know, recovery really changed my life. Kind of, not to be cheesy, but it gave me like a second life. So I'm considering this like my second mountain. I have a previous career, but recovery really ignited this passion to do something different, you know, outside the corporate arena. And when I found out there was a role where I could use my lived experience and some of my skills that I developed in my previous career, I was really excited. So I jumped in, I took a 2-week course, a 72-hour course, amazing facilitator, and I learned a lot. And I found that it made a lot of sense to me, and it got me excited. And I was put on a recovery blast. And so I saw the internship at McShin. I was familiar with McShin as a recovery foundation, but I didn't know a whole lot. So I came in and met with the COO, Jesse, and we discussed it. And I've been here about maybe 7 weeks. And I, too, came here to volunteer to get my 500 hours so I could sit for the certification exam to get my CPRS, Certified Peer Recovery Specialist. And it's been such an amazing experience. Very different environment. There was a little bit of an adjustment period because I'm used to very organized, very, you know, you primarily wear
what are
one
you trying
hat.
to say, Angie?
No. It's organized. It's just
That hole's
somehow,
kind of
somehow it works, right? Somehow it works.
somehow it works. That hole is kind of deep there, Angie.
Yeah.
I know. I gotta put on my crampons and climb right out of that hole.
Yeah.
So let me help Angie out a little bit because there was also an adjustment for me as well. So I have been used to a workplace. So I'm a volunteer intern here, right? So I've been in the workplace for a number of years. And one thing that I had to get used to was the more casual vibe.
Mhm.
So even though everyone, there's a mission that everyone is following, and there's a vision by the founder, John, it's still kind of casual in a way. And so I had to get used to that. And one of the ways that the casualness kind of shows through is through language, but I think it's more with the participants. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never been at a site where I've heard those kinds of words before. And it's okay during the day while I'm working. It's usually like after work in a social environment, you know.
Yeah, it's a lot of like when working with humans in early recovery, a lot of it is like meeting them where they're at, right? And for a lot of people, it took them a lot to even get to the place of asking for help. So they come in super vulnerable, and then especially in the 28-day in the intensive house, which Latika and Angie, you've come out there and done groups for them. It's a different type of fragility,
Yes.
That
you're dealing with.
It is. And that's what I've said. I'm like, there's a fragility to because primarily, it's important, as those of us in recovery know, primarily the women stick with the women and the men stick with the women because you are vulnerable and fragile. And just to backtrack just a second, I think for me, the environment is more, people wear so many hats and people jump in, and it's really beautiful and it works. And, in the corporate world, I wore one hat and I had some, maybe I had some clouds around. I'm just being silly now, but I wore a hat. I had multiple responsibilities, but I had my hat, I had my role. Here, I've experienced so many different things. And that's amazing because I'm not somebody that wants to do one thing repetitively over and over and over. And it's really cool because the teamwork in this environment is amazing.
Yeah,
it's really special.
We've all had, and I'm sure Nathan, you've been here for years. It's like there might be a couple days out of the week, or people are traveling, or people aren't in the office, where everyone's got to pitch in and kind of help fulfill the mission.
Yes, it's definitely a team effort. That's what I would say. So anyone at any point can step up, no matter what their role is, in order to fill in for someone else. If that means being a driver, if that means counseling, if that means admin, except for the money, if that means being on a podcast, if that means leading a group. I think all of the staff here is able to do that.
And Latika, I think everybody gets to handle the money but you.
Not me.
I mean, I don't. Well,
wait, is there money to be handled? How do I not know this?
Well,
no.
I'm referring to the bed fees.
We know.
Oh, yeah.
We don't. I don't want to touch those.
No. No.
But something interesting, I think, is that we all three of you guys have different kind of roles, and so Ellen, I know you're primarily working with our data, our alumni records. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience and what you've been hands-on with?
Well, I deal with making calls to participants that finished the program or either left the program, and I like what I do. It's really interesting when you get in contact with someone that they said they're doing well and they're working, or they got their kids back, or the program really helped them. And then you have others where they don't want to talk, or you have some that say that they want to come back to the program, and you could assure them that they can come back and they can receive the help that they need. And the job I do is pretty easy for the most part. I don't have no problems with it. I love what I do, and I hope that like my experience here get me where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So with the data, Ellen, the data is like so important too. We talked about being organized. I know in the early years of McShin, this was all kind of new. Everything's peer based, peer run. And, we were probably a little disorganized. We didn't really have the data to back up things, right? But now with funding opportunities and all these, like our data is very important. And so I'm sure that you've seen how stressed out or how stressful it can be to try to put this data together. Is it something that you want to get more into, or would you like to be more hands-on with some of the participants?
I would like to be more hands-on. I feel that being hands-on it'll give me a better learning opportunity, and I can share my lived experience with people who I talk to, and they can share their experience with me also, because it's not just me helping someone, but they're helping me at the same time I'm helping them.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
We might have to get you to come out to the women's house sometime and get some hands-on.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been out to the women's house, and I like being there. I like being here, of course, but there it's a more relaxed environment, and I feel like they
At the women's house?
Yeah, because they open up more.
Ah, okay.
Yes, I feel they open up more, and I also feel more relaxed. It's I feel like it is a respite from the rest of the world, um, and it is a comfortable space where people can get to know each other in community. And so that's what it's all about. This is a community here. It is also a community there. So no matter where you are involved with the McShin Foundation, you're among community.
Yeah, I feel like it's really important for those first 28 days to have kind of that separation between the men and women. Of course, they've got, co-ed events or, but for that vulnerability that we talked about earlier and that fragility, I think it's that intensive house has a really special place in my heart, because they've got a whole separate group room where, like, if you need to cry, you can cry.
Yes.
If it's a Tuesday morning and you've got breath work with Frank, you do not feel weird at all, crying, laughing, it doesn't matter, and women open up about all of these traumas, their past experiences that they might not feel comfortable saying and talking about, like in a co-ed environment.
That's true.
And so I love, that space. I think that it's nice and set up, and they've got chickens. I mean, it's just it's a breath of fresh air.
The chickens, oh my goodness. The chickens, the male chickens, what are they?
Roosters.
The roosters. Yes, they can go wild.
I hated those. I protested those chickens.
The chickens.
They like
the
me.
male. What
no,
are the male?
I like
roosters?
them now. They're so nice.
I'm just saying they like me. They must not like you.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and some of the chickens have aprons on their back. I was like, why'd you dress up the chickens? That's weird. And they said the roosters peck.
And they scratch them.
Yeah. So they have to wear clothes.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of cute.
It's adorable.
It's
really adorable.
So it's not just me that they don't like. I mean, what's going on back there in the hen house?
I don't know.
I mean, you said it.
I don't think that they're like necessarily mean. I think that they're just really curious. Like one time the rooster tried to hop, and I was driving one of the McShin trucks. Always would try to hop in the truck with me. And I think they know English too, because I'd be like, "Look, I'm gonna have to hurt you if you get up here." And it looked at me, and then turned around and walked away. And I swear they're just really curious, and they just want to feel the love too. They feel the love from everybody else, and they're just like, "Why am I not getting hugged?"
You think, okay, all right, we could go with that.
Yeah, let's go with that.
I don't know. I was feeling some kind of way. I'm like, wait a minute.
I don't think that they're are they bullying you, Latika?
They were.
I don't know.
We're gonna have to
have a talk with them.
Maybe they just didn't know who I was. that was my first day, and I was, walking around. I was like, "Oh, this is nice out here. We have the deck."
Look, Frank says the Roosters like to compete with our breathwork sessions. He's like, first thing in the morning, let's do some nice breath work, and then all you hear,
Yes.
that's okay.
Wake up, everybody.
I keep telling them I have a huge pot on my stove. Oh.
What?
I mean, I would not be opposed to knowing where the source of my chicken wings came from.
I mean, it was Teddy Roosevelt, I think, who promised a chicken in every pot.
Yes.
Was it Teddy Roosevelt?
Yes,
Yeah.
you know your history.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the presidents and chicken, because I love a good chicken too.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Chicken wing prices are up. Inflation sucks, you guys.
I think Melanie sews those little aprons.
Oh,
Does
see?
she
I
sew them?
think.
I think she just orders them.
Well, let's go with she sews them.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
She's very
she does
resourceful.
everything.
She
Yes.
does everything,
Yeah, I
actually.
know.
She's
like,
becoming a
amazing.
TikTok star, though. So her and her kids, have you seen?
Oh.
Did you see the cone? I like cone.
No.
Okay, never mind. Melanie did a really good TikTok about the cone.
Oh my
and
god, I love
it's corn, but cone for all intents and purposes. But it's really
Okay.
cute.
I mean, that goes right along with what I was saying. Everyone around here is very talented. So
Yeah.
you never know what hidden talent someone has. And that's something else that we learn about our participants. We have participants who are musically inclined,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
With instruments, with voice, with dancing, spoken word. So even though they may have some other kinds of issues, they also bring their talents here.
Absolutely. I think, people, addicts, quote unquote, I think we're some of the most talented and resourceful people, that sometimes go overlooked, or, they just don't have that opportunity to explore their creativity and explore some of their passions because they're too busy worrying about survival,
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you, Monique. Like on the whole, from my experience, I think it's the vulnerability and maybe life hits us a little harder as addicts. We can't. It's just life feels real heavy, and that's a lot of times why substance use starts occurring, among other things. But there's like a raw creativity, and
Yeah.
like when you're in a safe place where you can explore that, and because if you are in survival mode, which a lot of people are,
Yeah.
and if you don't start out that way, sometimes you end up that way
Yeah.
before you can get in recovery. And those of us that make it into recovery are very blessed, because it's not a very large percentage. But yeah, I agree. And I've seen that in the women's intensive house, running groups and having them do creative things, and they love doing creative.
Yeah, so there are lots of
things.
ways that they can express themselves there. So maybe it's through coloring, maybe it's through painting, like we did yesterday with a vision board or a clipping from magazines and what we want our life to be, affirmations, as well as gardening, and of
Yes.
course the chickens. Can't forget them. So it's all a part of some form of therapy, be it art therapy, music therapy, play therapy, to help us express ourselves and get through the day, even if it's just for today, one more time.
Right. I mean, speaking of, we've got Kit. She was a guest on here last month. She's going to be performing at our 18th annual Recovery Fest next month.
Cool.
I'm really excited about that. She is very musically talented, and I cannot wait.
You'll get to see Kit next Wednesday. She's performing
Vigil.
for the Candlelight Vigil. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yes.
incredible. So Kit, we've got people doing spoken word next Wednesday too, correct?
Yeah. Cassie Perry.
Cassie.
Cassie. Yeah. And Esther. I'm not even gonna try. Mercuria.
Okay.
I think it's Mercuria.
That girl.
That girl, Esther.
Yep, that's what
Yes.
to say.
So I remember Cassie. And so one of my experiences being here is, you have some people people come through the 28 days, but some people don't actually make it through the 28 days,
Yeah.
right? But she is one of them. And so I remember seeing some people on their very first day, which is
Oh, yeah.
really, it can be really tough for those, depending on how they arrive and where they come from. If they were referred here, if they came on their own, or if they were forced to be here. But from being here, like Angie, the last 7 weeks, I came I think the very next day.
Okay.
Yes, we started the same week. And so it's been rewarding and challenging to see some people progress through that time. Some others who didn't progress, they had a little slip up, right?
They needed some more experimenting.
Yes.
More research. Is
More
that what you
research.
say?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes,
more
more
research, as Nathan
researching.
says.
Yes.
Oh, well, I don't say that. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says that.
There we
Yep.
go. The big book.
Mm-hmm. So they may have had to start again
Yeah.
another time.
But recovery, especially early recovery, is such a challenge. And I was running a group earlier this week, and one of the male participants he was doing very well, but when you're so early in recovery, you can get thrown off track pretty easily.
Yeah.
And it's so courageous, and I so admire people who have a slip or a relapse and they come right back. That takes an extraordinary amount of courage. It's really admirable.
Yeah. So something that I wanted to touch on. So when we were having our little green room sesh, before the podcast in my office, I asked Ellen something, and I really loved the way that she answered. I asked, if she was in recovery, and asked her how long she'd been in recovery, and please go. You answer, Ellen. Go ahead.
I've been in recovery for at least 2 years or more. I'm in recovery for mental health. I deal with depression and anxiety. I finally got to a point where I knew that I needed help, and in order to be successful and to be able to deal with a range of people, that I needed to talk to someone, because I always kept stuff bottled in. And once I actually got a therapist and I started taking medicine, it really took a weight off my shoulder. I began to get better. I began to have healthy relationships with people who I was dealing with, from family members to relationships with friends. And it's just, I've been doing a whole lot better. And then I'm in recovery for marijuana since December the 23rd of last year. And sometimes, like once in a blue moon, I still get a craving, but it's more so for me a mind thing. Like, I'll talk myself out of it. So one thing that I've learned, like talking about how I feel and being able to talk to people that I trust, it really makes me be able to deal with my problems better.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you know what? When Angie and I started, the first week that we started, we kind of got thrown into a situation. Okay, well, I'll speak for me, Angie.
Okay.
We actually we had a dual diagnosis class group. Do you remember? So dual diagnosis,
PTSD,
yes,
and recovery.
dual diagnosis, that's the term, or co-occurring disorders. So that means that you have a substance abuse issue, but you may also have an issue as such as anxiety, depression, schizophrenia. What are some other areas?
Well, a lot of people that come here, and a lot of people in recovery, certainly not everyone, have co-occurring addictions, whether it be gambling and food, or alcohol and drugs, or their sex addictions. You can be addicted to anything. I have a lot of cross addictions.
Mhm.
That's kind of funny about that last one, but But there are very few like purists. Like my only problem is this drug.
Mhm.
And
Right.
a lot of us have mental health issues, and we've seen that. I've seen that out in the recovery community, out in the Richmond and surrounding areas, and here are some where you have got to take care, especially if there's severe mental illness. It's really hard to get any other work done until you have at least addressed and you are working on your mental
Well,
health.
some people don't know that there is an issue, right? So some people have been
Yeah.
diagnosed, but others, they know there could be something there, but they don't know what to do about that.
Well, that's something that we had spoken about, Ellen. It was for a lot of people, it's kind of difficult to admit that you have a mental health issue going on. Like that there is a problem that you can't just pray and it'll get better.
Right,
Or you
because
can't just say, I'm strong enough. Like you got to get to the point where you're like, I have to talk to someone.
yes, you
I've
you
got to
have to
address
take some
this.
type of action, right?
Yeah.
And for so long, it's been stigma associated
Absolutely.
with it, right? And so, who wants to admit that when you know what? I don't need any help. You know what I'm
I
saying?
got this.
Yeah, my
Mhm.
grandmama told me to just pray about it,
Right.
right?
Like, no.
Yeah, no. Oh, but baby, you were in the class like with some other children who
Yeah.
needed more help in their daily functioning. You don't remember being in that class in school. Or maybe you had an IEP in school or 501, right? So you had some special accommodations at school. Well, you may not have really realized what was going on, but those were accommodations.
Or you might be like, so I excelled academically. I know in some families, like Angie, we were talking about, it's difficult to admit that you're struggling mentally or with substance use disorder because you are held to a standard, like
Mhm.
they're perfectionist. And it's
Yes.
like, no, my daughter is totally okay. She is shaking in a corner crying
Mhm.
because she does not want to go outside, but it's totally normal,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Like,
So as parents, especially as moms, um, you know, we look at our children and we have an expectation. I think parents in general want their children to do better than they did, do better than the previous generation, right? So there is pressure on kids to do better, be better. Some people have more opportunities, others have more resources, and so why not, right? There couldn't be anything wrong, but um, be, be, but we don't. They don't always have the chance to express it, right? Because the only thing that you see is that they're doing well. I
yeah.
can say that as a parent of two sons. I had two sons. They're in their 20s, and one was on the higher achieving side, and one was not. So I know all about the IEPs. I've been at the school
So
a
can
lot.
you because that's actually the second time someone has discussed IEPs today that I've earlier. So it's something for kids that need special attention.
Yes,
Can you
so
go a little bit more in depth about it?
IEP, individual educational plan. So that may mean a student may get more time to complete a test. It may mean they are moved closer to the teacher in the classroom. It may mean they have they work with a speech a speech counselor. Their exact title is escaping me right now, but they may have additional services at school, and so they work through that plan annually, and then it's checked on every 3 years.
Okay.
And so, together with a team of the teachers, counselors, could be a social worker, and the parents, that they put together a plan to assist the student to have better outcomes at school.
I love that idea so much more than just berating a child and saying, you're a failure, for lack of a better word,
Mhm.
and then just kind of leave them hanging to dry, instead of giving them the tools and special attention that they need where they can be, successful, not more successful than an average person, So
Oh, definitely. They
I
definitely
appreciate
have
the knowledge.
hidden talents that people don't know about. Like in the case of one of my sons, he he had some issues with some academics, specifically with the math and passing algebra. But if you want to know anything about sports, he could tell you everything about that. If only I could make the money from all of that trivia that he knows about the New England Patriots.
Oh, God.
If I
Oh, and it's Patriots trivia.
God.
Yes. Imagine being a Patriots fan in this area in Central Virginia.
Yeah, it's got to be tough
Yeah.
in any part of the country, any part of the world.
Right, for so many reasons, right?
Yeah.
They're the team to hate.
I mean, well, Tom Brady's not there anymore, so I think they're
Yeah,
irrelevant now.
what's the point?
Yes.
What's
know?
the point? Oh my goodness, Fairweather fans.
Like irrelevant, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have had both sides of the coin as it relates to public school in Chesterfield County.
Okay.
I've gone to the programming for the honors kids, and I've gone to the programming for the kids like my other son who did not have those same opportunities. But they both graduated from high school.
There you go.
So I'm like, yay, I
We
did
like
my
that.
part, job. Yes.
We like that.
Yes. But along the way, though, as a woman, dealing with the two of them on their journeys, some things that I didn't do all the time was self-care. So it was difficult.
Well, how have you changed that now? How is self-care part of your journey now?
Well,
And what do you do for self-care?
I have been educated about it. So Sundays is definitely my self-care day. So that means physically on the outside, we were talking about hair earlier, and you mentioned about a blowout, right? So getting your hair blowed out at the salon is expensive, right? So sometimes my hair might be curly, sometimes it might be straight with a flat iron, or sometimes it might be natural, just like how it is today. And on this day, the humidity, oh my goodness. It is a big thing
about Virginia, don't we?
Right?
Don't we, ladies? Yeah.
So self-care involves taking care of myself with beauty and skin, my hair, also with yoga and Pilates, which is one of the things that I incorporated into one of my groups with the women at the house 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. What are some of the things that we all do for self-care? So I know everyone here has been putting in hours, and it's a lot of helping other people. So sometimes we can kind of get lost in the sauce and forget that maybe we haven't had lunch in 2 days at work, or maybe we are not going to sleep early enough. So what are some of the ways that we've heard from Latika? What are some of the ways that you do self-care, Ellen? And we'll go around that. Like that.
Taking shorter days, learning how to do my nails myself, and once in a blue moon I do my hair.
Your nails are pretty, by the way.
Thank you. That's about it. Just try to take time to myself.
And what about you, Angie?
Okay, so I'm just going to focus. Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do, I've learned in recovery. So to me, self-care isn't about getting my nails done, and I'm not knocking it, right? For a lot of people, that really works. For me, it's doing step work, talking to my sponsor, maintaining relationships with my network of women, and, a few men in recovery now that I can lean on that will help me work through issues. If there's a challenging issue, even if I think I know what I want to do or what the right thing to do is, I'll call my sponsor, I'll call a trusted friend and say, what are your thoughts? I have a lot of chronic pain issues, so I do go to the chiropractor. I get massages when I can, because it's important to take care of physical and mental health. Most addicts are flaming codependents, and so I've done a lot of work on codependency. I could identify as a codependent before I could identify as an addict. So the thing for me is to not stop. I can't stop doing those things.
Yeah.
And so there were a couple of challenging days that I had. And so yesterday I made time to get to a meeting. I make sure I go to my meetings. My meetings are my medicine.
Meetings are my medicine. I think that's tweetable.
Oh, I literally don't have an original thought anymore. Everything is stuff that I've heard from other people. Like I was throwing out slogans in a group. I was like, I can keep going. And the guys were like,
Please don't.
laughing. I was like, that was good, right? And he was like, no, not at all. Not at all. But yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit different slant on it, but that is my recovery is taking care of myself. That's the biggest gift I've ever given to myself. So.
Well, I would add, for me as well, in addition to those physical things that I mentioned, things like, so I'm not in a recovery from a substance, but from domestic violence. And so there are some additional things that I have to do. So one of those is the information that I take in, right? In the environment. So I don't watch violent, I don't purposefully watch violent movies or reality show. That's kind of hard because it's in a lot of reality TV, right? But things that go in my head that I'm going to be thinking about on a loop in my head, in my thoughts. And
that's actually like a really good tip.
It is really
it
good.
really is,
Yeah.
because when you deal with any type of addiction, right, we're like obsessive. So it's like we might watch something that may or may not be triggering to us consciously, but then subconsciously we're sitting there and we just start replaying it, obsessing over it. And it's like, I have those thoughts sometimes where I may have acted great, but then like I start obsessing about it. I'm like, could I have done better? Or this or that, or I'll see something on a show or a movie.
Yes.
And so I think that that's a great tip for everyone. I mean, I think, and specifically, that's one of the reasons why I've started to take away some of the recovery movies or clips out at the women's house, just because a few times it might be the minority, like of percentage, but someone may have felt triggered about it, or they didn't realize that they felt like that in that moment.
Yeah.
But then later on in the afternoon, they're upset.
Yes, because it puts you right back in that moment, in that experience that you had.
Yeah.
Right? You're right back there. Like, how did I get here? Why am I thinking about that? Oh my goodness.
Well, that's one reason it's not encouraged to talk about specific drugs, specific types of alcohol, brands, because it can be triggering to someone. We need to be respectful of that.
And so when we say triggering, what do we mean, Monique?
For me, a trigger is something that will make me want to act out on old behaviors. It might not be triggering to make me want to necessarily use, but it might put me back in a bad emotional place. I might go back to feeling so anxious that I feel like my heart is going to explode, or I might feel so angry that I might want to harm someone. Those are old behaviors and things that I've overcome that I don't that don't serve me anymore, as I've grown in my recovery. So when things, or for me specifically, certain people I've had to distance myself from, I can have, that surface based kind of like, hey, how you doing? I'm glad you're doing great. But I can't like invite them back into my space, because then it's like they're still in chaos or they're still part of the circus, and then I end up as part of the circus too.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
So it's
Uh,
people and
people,
places
places, and things.
and things.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I especially in early recovery, it's, as you're getting to know yourself, like I was told I stunted my emotional growth when I started. For me, it was drinking. And that makes perfect sense. I did not like hearing that, but it makes sense. And so picking the people I spent time with, I didn't really know. And so then eventually, if someone was very chaotic, and I would think about how I felt after, like you were mentioning, if you see something triggering, you may not feel it in the moment, but like if I felt disrupted emotionally after the experience, and I was paying attention, it's like, wait a minute, every time I'm around that person, doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean I'm mad at them. It doesn't mean they did anything wrong. But as addicts, don't you think we're pretty sensitive?
Yeah, it just doesn't sit well with us, right? And once we start aligning ourselves with better in life, like more positive things, we're kind of going with the flow, the current of the river of life,
The
shall
currents.
we say, and then we see people or see old things or, meet up with old people that they might feel like they're there to kind of reverse us or make us go against the current.
Yep.
And we don't understand why. It doesn't matter how long it's been. We could have years in recovery, but like whenever we see this person again or are confronted with this certain thing or environment, we might feel a little uneasy. And it's not because we're triggered to use, but it's because it does not sit with my spirit anymore.
It could mess with your emotional sobriety, which once you are not craving your substance anymore, maintaining your emotional sobriety. Like for me now, that's my primary job.
Yeah.
Right. I encourage people to view their drug of choice, not think about, oh yeah, this was fun and this was fun. And, think about how miserable you were.
Don't think about the highs. Remember the lows.
The consequences.
Remember the lows. And something that I get now, like my dad always used to talk about, like, when you kind of are walking in your purpose and like you're living right, people tend to not even start bringing that negative energy around. It's like they feel your positive energy or like they feel that and they just like don't even want to disrupt it. So it's at that point where you don't have to constantly remind people, hey, please no, please don't offer me that. Please don't offer me that anymore. They start to just respect kind of who you are. And if they continuously disrespect it, then like you don't need those people around,
and that's why boundary work is so important. And we need to do it, especially early in recovery, and to build the boundaries, but then you have to maintain them. But one thing that was important to me, I don't know if it'll resonate with you guys, but we say change people, places, and things. Like it doesn't mean you can't ever go to Christmas with your family again, but if your family's very triggering, maybe you don't go this year. Like I had some experiences like that. But I was told to take should, always, forever, and never out of my vocabulary, so it doesn't mean that I can't ever see this person again.
Right.
It's my job to protect my sobriety, especially early on, right?
Absolutely.
We're so fragile and we can get kind of knocked off course. So I always tell people, just we don't test our sobriety, protect it. Don't, early on in recovery, I went out with a girlfriend who wasn't in a program. And she said, is it okay if I have a glass of wine? I was like, sure. And then I was like, man, I did good. And then it's like, my mouth is watering. That's all I can think about. Like, and I told a counselor about that, an addiction counselor. She's like, yeah, that's not very smart. We don't test our sobriety. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something that I literally cried over during the week of my 1 year. So I really wanted to see my favorite band, the Disco Biscuits, and they were in town playing at the National like a week before my 1 year. And I ended up selling my ticket because I had this like crazy thought. Like I was like, well, I could do this as long as I don't drink. Like I'll be good. but I could do this and get
Mhm.
away with it, right? And like I had that thought, and then I started crying. I sold my ticket, and then I started crying because I thought I was going to feel more comfortable. You know, I had these expectations of
Yeah.
a year I'm gonna be able to
Mhm.
do this and do that, and I felt upset. And then of course, you know, I talked to my sponsor and my best friend, and they both were like, you know, but you should be proud of yourself that you were able to recognize that, right? So and I was like, you know what, you're right, it's just not the time. Plus the national for me has always, it's a trigger.
Okay.
That venue is a trigger for me. So you guys, guess who won the Disco Biscuits lottery pool for October show?
Sweet.
And so I'll be going, you know, myself and a coworker are gonna go. So I'll go with somebody else in recovery. You know, it's, and the Jefferson Theater is so great in Charlottesville. It's a beautiful venue.
Yes.
And I'm really excited. I haven't had like, you know, any weird thoughts, and it's just, that's what happens when I just felt so disappointed because I placed these expectations on myself, right? But then like when it naturally came, it naturally came. So
Yeah,
it's not
and-
that I can never go
And
see live
Right.
music.
it's another year, right?
Mhm.
And it's not, is it necessarily specifically that venue, or is venues like
No,
that?
it's specifically that venue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
And Monique-
every time I've gone to that venue.
And Monique, I want to say, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
I applaud you. And that's really what early recovery is,
Mhm.
right? And, you know, a year is still kind of early.
Yeah, it is.
And, you know, but to have the awareness to recognize, like, this thought isn't healthy and it's not good for my sobriety.
Mhm.
And to give up something you really wanted to do because your sobriety is the most important thing, like that needs to be applauded. You know,
guys, I cried like a baby. And I was like, but I said, this is a setup, Dad. A week before my 1 year, you know? But, you know, it's all good. And
Well,
my-
the other thing that you mentioned was that you called someone.
Yeah.
So how important is it to have a sponsor?
Oh my God. First of all, I love my sponsor. Like, she is just so incredible. And it's, to me, it's very important. But I'd like to say that it's very important for me to have my 12-step sponsor, and also like a spiritual mentor, which a little taboo, but like it's really helped my spiritual relationship with my higher power, my relationship with my father. He's a pastor, and I kind of always like whenever he would talk to me about recovery before, I'd be like, this sucks. This is a cult, you guys. Like, this is weird. I do not like this. But now that I've had, a okay amount of sobriety time, those faith-based meetings mean so much to
Mhm.
me. Like, I can get my sponsor, my NA sponsor, and have my dad, and then I'll have 2 soundboards.
Yes.
And it's like, this is logical, this is what, basic text says, and then my dad can say, like, this is my spiritual advice.
So it sounds like what you have is a village of people who you can
Yes.
connect with
Yeah,
that
guys.
helps in your sobriety.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we could be like Tasmanian devils. We can just spin out of control, ruin everything, and then I'll just sit there and be like, well, what happened? You guys.
yeah. When I got sober, my sponsor said, okay, Angie, first thought wrong. If you feel compelled to go do something, you do the opposite. And I was like, how dare she? And then I was like, she is right every single time. Like, every urge I had was basically wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I know. That's so much.
And it's
right?
okay. Yeah, it is. It's kind of weird. I'm like, this is weird. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a grown woman.
I used
Like,
to always
my
say,
body is grown.
right. It's like I used to always be like, I'm gonna take the realest person I know's advice, the smartest person, myself.
Right.
And then I'd always be like, wait, what happened?
Well, I was
This
like,
can't
I
be
don't know
right.
what to do, but nobody else does either. So,
So the limit does not exist.
yeah.
The answer does not exist.
Well,
Right.
I know that I'm not the smartest person in the room.
Well, now I.
Well, now,
I know.
yeah.
that,
No.
You know.
Yeah.
Now I know that.
No.
I can possibly be wrong sometimes.
Mhm.
No, I'm. You know what? You know what? I see. I'm kind of the opposite. I really thought that I didn't know anything. I was unintelligent. I like just. I thought I loathed myself coming in. I didn't think I had any value to anyone. I certainly didn't value myself. I didn't value my life, and now I do. So it's cool because we can come from all different walks of life. We can come in mentally in different with different perspectives and experiences, but recovery works.
It does. I think that's a great note to end on, you guys. I would just like to thank all these amazing women. I cannot believe I'm sitting with so many amazing women right now in
I
one
can't
building.
believe
You
it
know,
either.
it's really awesome to have all of this feminine energy. I love it. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and thank you all for guesting with us. And y'all have a great day. Peace out.